how not to be afraid to excel. And we see it a lot. We talked about it too, especially like in a Black community, one, or yeah, specifically in the Black community as well. But also stepping out there with business ownership and entrepreneurship, with career changing and or adding or moving around, like all these different things, right? We could be terrified. I've been there. I've been terrified to be amazing and to be like top dog. I am now, and I love that I am now, and I appreciate what now. And I think, before I kind of get some of your insight, I think one huge thing it just left my head, and that is one thing I don't have written down. Okay, I'm gonna think about it, but yeah, I'd love to hear your insight on being afraid to excel.
Sometimes we are afraid to excel because it makes you hyper visible. I am hyper visible in everything that I do. Like, as a Black male professor, I am hyper visible. Like, people see me and they are just kind of, I think they are intrigued and sometimes just like, I wonder what that's like. And I get it because I grew up like that. I didn't know a lot of professionals growing up. I had an aunt who, or I have an aunt, I'm sorry, she's still, alive, but she is a physician and has always been like a life mentor, of mine. But that was the only professional we had in our family. Other people did, blue collar work, and that's no shade. My father was a blue collar worker who, sacrificed a ton to, put me where I am today. And I'm eternally grateful. In fact, I need to tell him more often how eternally grateful I am. But my aunt was the only professional I knew in our family. And I was just always curious, like when she and her family would, travel to different international places, I'd be like, man, I wonder what that's like. You know what I mean? Or like when I would see places that, they would live or, things their children would do and say, I'd be like, wow, I was just intrigued. So I get that people are intrigued. I do have a pretty cool life as a professor. I got a research project in South Africa. I go to South Africa regularly. When I go to South Africa, I enjoy a lot of really great culture. I, as a professor, spent 5 weeks in Senegal a couple summers ago and, was chronicling it on social media. We did some really cool things in the community. We also did some really cool things that were like fun vacation type things, staying at resorts and things. And so, like, I do live a very cool professorial life, and I'm grateful for that. But it's hyper visible because typically, like, even when you go to Africa, they are not used to seeing Black Americans. So sometimes they're just kind of like, wait, you're from America? Because they think that Americans are white, and so but you're hyper visible no matter where you go. Additionally, as a middle-class Black person, because I study middle-class Black folks, whenever you shop certain places or when you travel or when your child, my child goes to an independent school, my child plays golf, he does all those things, you're hyper visible. You know what I'm saying? Like, people always see you more than they see other people. As a bodybuilder, my friends and family, all of my friends on social media, I'm hyper visible as a bodybuilder. So if I eat a cupcake, then people are kind of like, you eat cupcakes? When everyone else is eating cupcakes and nobody is looking at everybody else stuffing their face, with cupcakes. And so you're just hyper visible. So when you excel, you have to be willing to, recognize that people are going to notice you, and you have to be okay with that.
Yeah, that's so very true. I remember what I was going to say, and I'm going to actually kind of tie it into what you just talked about. So for me, when it comes to having been afraid to excel, I think it's because I've been afraid to take huge, bold steps. And the one piece about being afraid to take huge, bold steps is that it stops you from having huge, bold success.
Yeah.
Right. And for me, that terrifies me, the huge, bold success, used to, because I didn't have to keep up with it as well. The huge, bold success with that, the huge, bold steps that I consistently also have to take, right? That self-discipline piece that we were talking about from earlier, right? If I'm controlling my life, then I have to make those steps. And that used to terrify me. That terrifies a lot of people. Now, kind of tying it back into the
hypervisibility.
Hypervisibility. There we go. Hypervigilance. I'm like always watching out for stuff. Hypervisibility. I'm a high visible
Yeah,
ability.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
But tying it back into that is when you make huge, bold steps, every step that you do make is also extremely visible to other people. And so even with having success, even with wanting the success that you want, there is like that barrier. There's this fear that you have to overcome when you know the necessary step, if you know the necessary step, which again, if you don't know the necessary steps, those are things that you need to write down to be able to visualize your success. But when you find that big, bold step that you need to take, that's only part of the journey. And so for you, what kind of big, bold steps have you neglected taking that could have changed your trajectory?
I am very happy with the work I do as a professor, but I also think that there have been so many other things where I have not stepped outside. Sometimes I don't know what I would end up doing because I didn't allow myself to step out to all these opportunities. Which, if I can take this a second and stand on a soapbox when people talk about, college is not important, and when people talk about general education classes are not important, I want to debunk that with every bone in my body. Um, because we don't know what we're good at. We don't know what we're interested in until we're introduced to all these different things. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes I see jobs that people do and I say, like, I didn't even know that was a job. Like, I didn't even know people could get paid to do that. But through taking
Mm-hmm.
general education courses, you get an opportunity to see what a political scientist does, to see what a writer does, to see what an advertising agent does, to see what a media specialist. You know what I mean? Like, you get an opportunity to see that. I think that my next this is no time soon. Like, this is maybe like when I'm 65, 70, or something like that. But a job that I can see myself doing is giving away money for companies, because I absolutely love working in communities and doing, like, good for people in general, but especially people who really need it and who are socioeconomically oppressed. Um, and so, like, there are companies out there who you have like a quote unquote chief giving officer, where that person is responsible for building relationships with communities and just giving them money, giving them resources,
That's
giving them,
awesome.
access to resources. And so, like, I would love to do something like that, but I didn't even know that was like a job. But most of your major
Without,
companies have someone who do it, and those people are generally at like a vice president level.
that
And
is a pretty
so
big, bold step.
So there are so many things that
Yeah.
like, I feel like I fell into this academic life that I absolutely love, and I'm fortunate to have fallen into it. But sometimes, because I am so linear, are there other things I could have fallen into? And so I'm kind of
Mm-hmm.
grateful for this season. I just turned 42 in December, and my wife and I had gone out to lunch, and she said, "Baby, what is, like, year 42 for you?" And I said, "I think it is really like clarity around like my career goals."
Yeah.
You
First
know?
off, she didn't say year 42. What did she
What's that?
say? She didn't say
Say it
year
again.
42. She didn't say year 42. She said, what was it? What was it?
What is
Stage
it?
chapter 42?
I think you're right. Yes, I think it was chapter 42.
You-
Man, you got a really good memory. It's funny because
no,
I
I
did
don't.
you got a really good. Yeah, like when we were just chatting, just informally, I told you she said chapter 42. Thank you for that. Yeah,
Mhm.
because it's a chapter in what our book of life is, man.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I'm starting to receive
So
that because oh, go ahead. Yes.
no, you're good. You're good. You're good. Free.
I was going to say, I'm starting to see that because I'm very passionate about, fitness and wellness, and, any chance I can get to talk about it, if it is through, writing, if it is through talking, if it is through, doing classes with folks. I teach cycling classes. Like, I am just so passionate about it.
Yeah. Wow. Speaking of passion, how, because obviously when it comes to um, making sure that you're actually taking those steps and actually wanting to excel, a lot of times our passions could bog down or push down our responsibilities.
Mm.
And so how do you actually like pursue passion projects while also maintaining your responsibilities?
Yeah, because it is hard. As I was saying before, like I am a full-time professor with, lots of responsibilities in terms of teaching, research, and then even service that we offer to the university and the community. But what I try to do is merge those interests, as I was sharing earlier on, with interest in doing work with Black
Hmm.
boys in schools, doing something with fitness. I mean, that's an opportunity to kind of scratch that itch that I have for fitness and wellness, but to also do my job, because as professors, we have to be committed to the community in terms of service. We have to be committed to our universities in terms of, service. And so that's the way I serve my university and my community, by doing something that I'm also passionate about. So it's kind of that killing, two birds with one stone. So, like you said, you do have to be creative. I'm also really passionate about. I teach cycling classes on Wednesdays. Those I teach that class at 6 o'clock in the morning, or 6:15 in the morning, but practically 6 o'clock in the morning. But I get it
Wow.
done before my regular workday starts. You know what I mean? So I'm able to still like
Hmm.
work with a group of people on all, because like I'm in the class with them, so I'm growing in my fitness and challenging myself. But I get it done before I start work. But I also work out in the mornings before I start work on other days as well. And again,
Wow.
that's a way for me to teach and inspire people, but to also get a workout in. So it's kind of a 2 for 1, right?
Yeah.
I also get a gym membership. So I'm saving my family money by working at the gym, that one day a week. So it's like, it's all like God is just kind of all woven it nicely together, if that makes sense.
That's awesome. Yeah. So kind of to wrap up, not being afraid to excel. We talked about, having having that highly visible status all the time, and then needing to take big bold steps. Right? What are some common barriers that like taking those bold steps can have, and how would you recommend overcoming them?
For me, I share with you my, religious beliefs. I'm a Christian, and my walk with Christ has really helped me. Like, there are so many times when in my spiritual walk, the devil has told me, like, you ain't big enough for that. Or like, why would you even go out for that opportunity? Or like, your body don't look like this, or you don't have that experience, or this and that. And I just have to remember that I'm built in God's image. And so, in being built in God's image, I know that He didn't make any mistakes. And I know that He is all powerful. And so, if He's all powerful, that means that I am all powerful. And so, when the devil, like tells me, like, you shouldn't do that, it almost makes me say, not even it makes me say, you know what? It's something good about that, because someone's trying to keep me from it. That means I need to do it.
Hmm. There's two things you said um, right there. So I want to talk about that piece right there, uh, because when the devil's working on me, that means something's good's coming. All right, there's
Yeah.
going to be so many obstacles
He don't mess
on
with
your
weak
path to
people.
success. Yeah, there's going to be so many obstacles on the path to success that are always going to come. And I kind of like to think of it from a scientific perspective. Now, you probably know better than I do, but Newton, Isaac Newton's
Mm,
law of energy or motion, law of motion, for every
yeah.
reaction, law of reactivity, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, something like that, right?
I've heard it, but
Push and pull.
the year my friends took physics, I actually moved, and I took anatomy, and so all those physics references I don't
That
get
little
because I
stuff.
never took
Okay.
physics.
So I like to put it into that perspective
Yeah.
where there's an equal and opposite force, right? Just like
Yeah.
Christ, right? You have Christ, you're going to have the devil. You need to have the opposite, right? And
Yeah.
so it's the same thing with greatness. On the while you're having greatness, there's also going to be the opposite, right? All those obstacles, all the challenges as well. And I think one thing is just that being afraid to excel, a lot of people see those obstacles and those challenges, but they don't realize that on the other side of that mountain is that success, or probably another mountain, which might be okay, right? Might be another mountain, Might not be anything at all. You probably got to keep going down the
Yeah.
trail till you get to the success, right? But it's right there. The only other thing on the other side of the last obstacle is success.
Right.
And it's because you have those equal and opposite reactions, right? You know that if the devil's working on you, it's because you got something good right there. You know, and in my business right now, a lot of the individuals that are in my team back in January were struggling, were having a lot of personal issues. We just had a record-breaking month in February, shortest month of the year, record-breaking month.
Wow.
The most achievements, the most new certifications, the most people helping train other people, the most people bringing other people into business, the most people helping families out. I mean, the best month, and we had the worst January. Like my truck got stolen. You know,
Wow.
I had a lot of other business partners of mine in my team specifically really struggling, and we just had the craziest month. You know, and that's not something that we could have predicted. But what I did say was I let everybody know, hey, we're all going through the suck right now. Something great is about to be here. Something great.
Yeah.
Something great. And then we had an amazing February. So I love that you touched on that piece. And then you also said that the devil tells you sometimes that you're not big enough. And this is a principle that I love to talk about because I like to put everything on a scale. Oh, I don't need to draw. I won't draw it. I like to put everything on a scale. On a scale of 1 to 10, right? And we'll go 1 down here, 10 up here. Now, let's say that you have a problem, regular average problem. Average problem is about a 5, maybe a 6, and maybe about a 5. Problem is a 5. Depending on how big of a person you are, will depend on how small or big that problem looks. If you're a 3, that 5 problem might look pretty massive. A 10 problem will be catastrophic, right?
Yes.
But if you're an 8, 9, or 10 person size, right, that 5 is minuscule.
Yes.
And so when you have these forces and these things and yourself and all these other people telling you that you're not, you know, that big of a person, or you're not that big, either 1, you don't accept it and you really look at where you are, right? Or 2, you actually increase your identity. I think increasing your identity is also a big piece. And so like you said that, and I had to write it down because both of those things were not 2 things that I thought about writing down. But I love that you brought those 2 up because I think those are very key in actually not being afraid to excel this week.
Yeah. And I think also, you know, the research shows in the like wellness literature that if you artificially, I always say again, as a sociologist, that we can artificially inseminate things much like you can in the natural sciences. So say, for instance, in the natural sciences, if you have a woman who has a challenge of, you know, a challenge getting pregnant, that you can artificially inseminate, right, a woman with a baby or whatever I'm getting obviously the terms incorrect. But in the same way,
you didn't go to physics or I'm assuming biology, maybe not.
And I failed chemistry, so that kept me from going on to be a physician, man.
I'm not a chemist at all.
Yeah.
I learned that by going to my general studies. I promise you I went to I learned that chemistry is not it for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so in the social sciences, very similarly, right, we can artificially inseminate things so that, say, for instance, if we have people who are struggling with, you know, financial resources, we can give them money. Or if we have people who are struggling with, you know, like reading and literacy, we can give them reading and literacy, you know, support. And so in the same way with our bodies, if we artificially inseminate stress on our bodies in the form of physical activity, if that is with running, if it is with lifting weights, anything that challenges yourself, there is a connection between your body and your mind that if you artificially inseminate stress on your body, that it prepares your mind for stress. And so it would not be uncommon for someone who does a highly stressful job to work out because that prepares their mind, like working out physically, it prepares their mind to handle stress, to make hard decisions, to make decisions that are going to either save or not save someone's life, to either save or not save someone's company, right? To
Mm.
either, like make a
Mm-hmm.
decision that is going to ruin or either, strengthen the reputation of a company. And so, like, I really, really stress to people that, yes, in addition to, the physical benefits and looking and feeling good, it prepares your mind. So a lot of times, as you said, there may be something that may be a 10 to somebody, and I will see it as a 5. I will be like, you know what? This is rough, but this is what we're going to do.
Mm-hmm. This is
And
necessary.
sometimes people don't love being around a person like that because you're a person who, like they may be miserable and you're like, no, we got this. And they're like, no, we don't. Like they want you to be in the miserable camp
Mm-hmm.
with them.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. You gotta overall when it comes to excelling, you need
Yeah.
to or be not being afraid to excel. Like understand that there are going to be obstacles, right? And you need to take those big steps,
Yep.
as well as actually like taking care of yourself, increasing your identity this week. Find those ways to celebrate those small wins, and then we talked about that
Yep.
earlier as well. Yeah. So
Yep.
thank you for that. That was great. But